To help support me in the channel, you can use one of the links below and press the notifications bell to alert you of a new video. Now, back to the video. In 2017, CompileHeart released Mary Skelter for the PlayStation Vita, and it was a fantastic dungeon crawler for its time. It included fairy tale characters and creepy dungeons. Now, it will be only coming to the Nintendo Switch in the US. It's still available for the PlayStation 4 in Japan, but that's all in Japanese. There's no English in it whatsoever. Are these games worth $40? Let's find out in this review. The first thing that I noticed was that there is an extra story mode if you use the L1 button at the main menu on the PS4 version. It's all story and it will extend your love for the game if you are interested in more story, but you don't have to play it at all. The same can be said for the first Mary Skelter game. You don't have to play it, and I'm going to give you a forewarning about the previous entry of the game series. You can literally spend hundreds of hours in it. I didn't spend that much time, but I've seen people in forums who said they spent over 100 hours on it. It can be quite a lengthy game. In the Nintendo Switch North American version of the game, you have to download the game separately, and I have not heard if it will contain the additional story menu. I cannot download that version yet because you have to wait till the game actually comes out. All I have is a review copy of the second game, and I didn't receive any copy for Mary Skelter Nightmares. What's different with Mary Skelter Nightmares? The game has been revamped, it looks better and performs well on the PlayStation 4. On the Switch version, everything seems less vibrant, and sometimes I notice more lag on Mary Skelter 2. The dungeon sizes have been scaled down because many players had complained about them being too big. There's a new toggle feature which allows for manual and automatic checks of Jail Roulette. The game has been balanced more to make it easier and better for players. There's also an additional sort feature which enables the direct use of gift items from storage. In addition to this, there is a feature to track the amount of materials needed to complete quests and missions. The quest system has also been enhanced. Additional categories have added a new dimension to the Jail Roulette system, and new criteria give more control over growing dungeon areas. Jail effects are now displayed via a pop-up when activated. For the size of the maps, they are still huge. I don't remember how big they were on the PS Vita version of the game, but for Mary Skelter 2, it still took me 3 to 4 hours to complete one dungeon. On the PS Vita version, I would get lost for even a longer amount of time. Here is an overview of the story from my review for Mary Skelter Nightmares from the PlayStation Vita. The game is set in 1999's Japan in a living prison known as Jail. When this prison was birthed, it was swallowed by the earth and burrowed 666 meters below the ground. The results of this cataclysmic event were hostile monsters known as the Martian. The story of the game takes place decades after the cataclysm. Our main protagonist Jack and his childhood friend Alice are tortured by the jail guards. As they are about to give up on living, a girl holding a pair of scissors appears before them. Jack and his many heroines must escape jail by solving the dungeon's mysteries and fighting through the Martian. I adored the game's story and loved the many characters that come with it. For instance, we get characters like Alice from Alice in Wonderland. In the new game, you have the Little Mermaid, and you even have Rapunzel. You have all kinds of characters that will come into play in this game. I also enjoyed the dark and treacherous environments. Back in the day on the Vita, at times it was a little too creepy for me, but it also was a little darker and more vibrant. On the Switch version, it's a little lighter and it's not as scary. It's not as scary the second time around, and it felt like it wasn't as dark and as vibrant as the PlayStation Vita version. As you proceed through the dungeon, you will have special nightmarish monsters actively stalking you. It adds a sense of creepiness to the game. Also, don't forget that this isn't some 10 or 20 hour game. You will spend tons of hours completing this adventure. There's also a lot of DLC that they gave for free with the original game. I can only imagine that that would also come with the Switch version once the game comes out. So you should be able to download the game and all the DLC that came with it. They've been doing that with a lot of Idea Factory games, so you should have a ton of content. So don't worry about content. The first game has so much content. The second game has a lot of content too. Now let's go over the story for Mary Skelter 2. Mary Skelter 2 evolves the core elements in Mary Skelter nightmares to bring to you a world teeming with twists and turns, topped with a new battle feature where the previous protagonist, Jack, is now a nightmare. Players can use his nightmare powers to defeat enemies, but at a maddening cost. Set in an alternate reality that includes familiar characters from the first installment, players must relive the torturous dungeon experiences and find ways to feed an almost insatiable prison. Will you be able to escape this prison and find sanctuary, or will you fall into the clutches of madness? Mary Skelter 2's story is not as magical as when I first played the original for the PlayStation Vita. The game's story is very interesting sometimes. However, without the voice acting, it can feel boring. There are many unvoiced scenes. I wish that there would be voice actors in these parts of the game to fill in the void. It's still a very fun game nonetheless. For how much you pay for these games, you are getting so much story and it's fantastic. I love these games for what they are, and they are still some of my favorite dungeon crawling games. Let's talk about the gameplay. Mary Skelter 1 and 2 feature a turn-based dungeon crawler gameplay. The dungeons used to be excruciatingly hard and long to get through. However, Compile Hard has made it easier by balancing the battles more and downsizing the dungeons. You may also change the level of difficulty if it's too hard for you. I didn't die as much in Mary Skelter 2 as I did when I played the original game for the PlayStation Vita. I haven't gotten to play Mary Skelter 1 for the Nintendo Switch in English yet, but from what I played on the PlayStation 4, it's very fun. I think that Idea Factory added extra hacks to make the game harder and easier. For instance, there is a hack that makes the map disappear completely. This made it too hard, so if they do have this feature on the English North American version of the game, be careful with what you turn on. Since I didn't get a full grasp of Mary Skelter 1's English gameplay, let's talk about the intense gameplay for Mary Skelter 2. You traverse through many floors of the game's dungeons. You will have to use skills to get by obstacles. Some of these skills include using a giant woven ball to fill in holes, or temporarily block an unstoppable monster from attacking you. And don't worry guys, the monster really does seem much better on this version than the PS Vita. He's not super unstoppable.
How's this? Nice work. Here I go. Here I go. Let's end this.
Here I go. Move back.
Here I go. Here I go. Why you?
Stay focused. Go.
Nice work. Here I go. Take this. Yoink, here I go. Let's go all out.
You can use a skill to pull doors towards you so that you can get through. and there's even a tear flinging skill that lets you destroy hearts within the dungeon to fulfill your bloodlust. Early in Mary Skelter 2, Jack is turned into a nightmare. You can use his skills in battle. Usually he is not that special. He's just a big oaf. After you use him, if he doesn't calm down, he can become insane and kill both you and the enemy. He will become unstoppable and it will be game over. So you have to calm him down. You have HP, SP, many skills that you choose to unlock, and so many weapons in your arsenal. This game has so many things that you can do in battle. I will choose a couple of these things to talk to you about. One interesting skill is licking. When you lick one of the other party members, if they have enough blood on them, you will use a skill that will have one of many kinds of effects. Sometimes you'll get a defensive skill against one attack or heal your whole party. There are many effects to licking a fellow comrade. When your bloodlust gauge is fully filled, you can unleash an ultimate attack. Some of these will cost you 0 SP or a few SP. Usually they are cheap and deal a lot of damage. You can choose what skills to unlock with special points earned from leveling up. There are many of these, so you can build your party to your liking. Because this is a dungeon crawler, there will be traps. I found that the red balloons will usually be bombs. Sometimes there are knights that swing at you if you are slow. Spikes will come out of the ground too. From what the game told me, if you are in battle and near a trap, sometimes it will attack you in the heat of a battle. Personally, I didn't experience it, but that's what I think one of the many in-game tutorials told me. One thing I hated was getting lost. I spent hours in the very first dungeon because I don't think the game was clear in making me understand how one of the skills worked. Also, I think that if you haven't finished a certain part in, let's say, a couple hours, the game should give you a hint at where you are supposed to go. I felt lost many times, even with the smaller maps. There is an auto walking feature that makes the game more bearable if you don't like to walk yourself. This is useful if you already filled in the whole map and need to get somewhere without having to press buttons. The game will stop you from going into a trap too. I felt like the gameplay was made easier. I played it on normal difficulty. You can play on easy, normal, or hard. This also can be changed by going to your settings at any time. An update to the graphics make it really look good when comparing it to the original game on the PS4 version. However, on the Nintendo Switch it felt less vibrant than my PS Vita and PS4. I also tried it on handheld mode and it seemed the same as the TV mode. The graphics didn't change even though it was on a smaller screen. There were times where it didn't feel smooth on the Nintendo Switch. Overall, this is a great package if you have a Nintendo Switch. PlayStation elitists can only buy the Japanese version, so you can forget about that ever happening because Sony is being stingy with censorship. Because Idea Factory doesn't like to censor their games, and Steam and Nintendo are being very pro-developer and consumer, you will likely be able to find it easily in the Nintendo eShop and Steam store. Everything is great except for the graphics seeming worse on the Nintendo Switch and the confusing to maneuver dungeons. I'm giving this game an 8 out of 10. For $40, this is a great package for two very similar but wonderful games. I'd definitely recommend picking this game up. If you would like to buy the game and help support me, you can use the PlayAsia link down below. You also get an additional $3 off if you use the code R3D. You can also use one of the other affiliated links below. I'd like to give a quick shout out to my patrons for this month: Sten0328, Yo-Yo Mongo, and Snizzy Snaz Bullets. Thank you guys for being my patrons for this month. If you would like to help support me on Patreon, you can donate as little as $1 a month. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget the thumbs up, comment below, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next review.
Oh, I never thought I would be elected to be